Hello, everybody. I am back for another Baltimore Orioles video. This is my Orioles in June and May video. I'll talk about these last couple series and my thoughts on them. Where do I think the team goes from here going into June? My expectations are, and so on and so forth. Let's get started off with the good that I thought happened this series. Start off with the good that I think happened over the months. Pitching. I've been impressed with the pitching. I think the pitching has improved a lot. Uh, Charlie Morton went from a liability to a guy who you could trust to get you 5-6 innings of work. I don't know if you can trust him more than that, but five, maybe slightly around 6 would also. He's actually been pretty solid. So Morton's definitely starting to get into the good side. And obviously, the top dogs in your rotation right now are Sugano and Eflin, and both of them have been as good as advertised, and Povich has been solid as well. So right now, those are your top four, and then Kramer is your five, and honestly, that starting rotation is not that bad. I do think Morton and or Kramer will probably be on the hot seat going into June and even July. When you got Trevor Rogers doing really good. I mean, his first game back, he threw 6 shutout innings. But then you also got the rookie, Brandon Young, potentially coming back soon. And you also got, of course, Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells on the IL, who also could be joining your rotation by the end of July. So it definitely got a mix of guys there. And the question is, of course, going into July and even August and September, what's their starting rotation going to look like? Because let's say the Orioles are back into playoff contention and they want to reload at the deadline and they want to go out and get a bunch of pieces so that they can make a playoff push. Who do you want leading your rotation right now? And right now, Sugano looks to be a lock going into the later months. And Eflin, unless he gets traded at the deadline, if they're not doing so well, looks to be a lock going into later months. And Povich, I think, is the third guy that I would lock in. And that's just because he's the best lefty we got right now. So, besides those three, you got options open available for any of those other spots. So that's enough with the pitching. I think the pitching has been solid. Let's go on to the batting and some things that I've liked from the batting. Let's start off with Jackson Holiday. I'm glad that they're making him an everyday starter. That was the number one complaint I had with Brendan Hyde, was he wasn't ready to commit to Jackson Holiday, especially at the beginning of the year. Especially when it felt like Jorge Mateo was playing twice, 3 times every week. And they just kept platooning him into the rotation for Holiday, which annoyed a lot of people. So I'm glad Holiday's getting more starts. I'm glad he's becoming an everyday guy. I'm especially glad that he's leading off. I think he's a really good leadoff. And moving Henderson number 2, I think, is also really good. Henderson and Rutschman to 2 and 3. But we'll get to Rutschman and Henderson later. But Holiday leading off, I think, is really good. Number 2, the other guy that I've been impressed with is, of course, Ryan O'Hearn. He's batting around 300, I think. Very nice OPS, too. He's definitely our biggest power bat right now. It feels like he's due for a home run once, twice, maybe 3 times a week. He's been our top power bat. I think by the end of the year, he will lead the team in home runs. That is, if he doesn't get traded. And once again, we'll get to that when we get to that. And then the other guy, their best righty right now, is Ramon Arias, who was hurt at the beginning of the month, but has come back strong, and it has been pretty good. So, and then we'll also talk about the injuries later. But yeah, Arias, another really good one to have right now. Um, and then we'll get to the yeah. I guess now I talked about some good stuff. Time to move on to some of the worst stuff that I've seen out of this rotation, out of this team. Uh, I already thought about how good the rotation is. I thought about like where to, what my concerns are going into the later half of the season. Um, but the one thing that I want to talk about now is the pen, and the pen is a concerning part because Bautista is good, but I don't think he's an everyday player good, and that's a bit of a concern for me. That I don't trust Bautista to go back to back. It feels like they're making him go back to back, even though he definitely looks weaker in the second game than he does in the first. I mean, that was my concern in the White Sox series. Is he got out of it, he got the save, but he just pitched the day before throwing 30 pitches. So that that's one of the concerns is how how much can you really rely on Felix Bautista, and how many days of rest does he need between each games, and can you give him that rest? Besides Bautista, the rest of the rotation, I've been what you expect. Some good stuff, some bad stuff. I mean, uh, Cano feels like he did have a really good game, but then right after that he might blow it. Same thing with Greg Soto, another one. Brian Baker has had some really nice games this year, but then he also blew it against St. Louis. Um, and Keegan Aiken is your last high end reliever, who's another one that seems to be shaky at times. So your relievers have been a bit of a mixed bag, and Batista's obviously been your best reliever. How how much can you rely on him to go every day? So that's your rotation. That's your bullpen rotation. Now let's look at the bad stuff in the batting. And the first one is Adley Rutschman. Uh where do I start with Rutschman? Uh yeah, he has been cold. I do think that it is time to move him down the order. As I said before, I like Holiday leading off, and I do think Henderson would be a good second. But this is where I think we need to switch Urias and Rutschman. Move Urias to third, Rutschman goes down the order, maybe fifth or sixth. O'Hearn stays cleanup, and then you go guys like Rutschman, Rivera, etc., etc. And now that uh, Colton Cowser's back, where does he go into the lineup? Holiday's not moving out of the leadoff spot. I think he's a very good leadoff hitter. I think he will stay in the leadoff spot. But do you put Cowser second or third in replace of Holiday or Henderson? So that's something else you got to consider is where does Colton Cowser now fit into your batting rotation? And then the back of the lineup has guys like Dylan Carlson, who's had some nice games, but is mostly on the colder side. Kerstad is one of the more concerning guys. Is he's a former first round pick, former high prospect. But the question with Kerstad is he's going to become a bit of a liability with his because both his bat and his fielding have been like up to par with the rest of the guys in your rotation. But we'll see where Kerstad ends up because there's a lot of talk that he might go down to AAA when we bring guys like Ramon Laureano and Cedric Mullins back from the IL and keep Dylan Carlson as your fifth outfielder. So that'd be interesting what to do for that fifth outfield spot between Carlson and Kerstad. As I can see either or, but the question is who will they go with for that last outfielder spot? because you got your starters are Cowser, Mullins, and either Loriano or O'Neill. Let's see who they choose between Loriano and O'Neill. Because O'Neill was going to be started at the beginning of the year, but he seemed to have tapered off a bit. But we'll see what they do. And Loriano's gotten hot, so you could put Loriano as your right fielder and take O'Neill out of your starting lineup. And then first base, with Mountcastle hurt, O'Hearn's your starting first base. I would like to see some Rivera games. I would like to see some Mayo games, but O'Hearn should be your starting first baseman unless you move him into the outfield in a spot like Kjerstad, for example. Move Kjerstad out, O'Hearn in, and Mayo or Rivera first. Third base, no problem. That's Arias. I think Arias stays at third. No questions there. Second and short are Holiday and Henderson. Once again, no problems there. That's always Bennett. And then behind the plate is freshman. Once again, no concern there outside of his bat. So that's where I think the team is heading. There are some concerns, as I said before, with Ellie Rushman, Heston Kjerstad, and me and Jorge Mateo to a smaller extent, but we knew at the beginning of the year that Jorge Mateo wasn't going to be an everyday guy. But I will say there's more good than bad this month, and it will be interesting to see what they do in June. Because I think if they get hot, they're going to be buyers at the deadline. If they get cold, they're going to be sellers at the deadline. I will talk about that in a future video of where do I think this team goes at the deadline.